And that's really the key thing there. So getting that position of need settled, that's huge, and it completely settles completely changes their team. And, I went back and forth on this. I'm going to give it a win, simply because I like the Bud Dupree signing, and I think it's something they needed so much. I think their secondary looked way worse last year because they didn't have a pass rusher. Vic Beasley and Clowney combined for no sacks. They tried to address it, didn't work. There still is a chance with the injury. Dupree's getting up there, but when healthy, he is one of those guys who can consistently beat a tackle. So I have it as a win.
Yeah, I think so too. I question some of the moves because, I didn't love them getting rid of Adoree Jackson. I thought this offense was fantastic last year, and I think it's worse now. Losing guys like Davis and, losing some guys on the offensive side of that ball. But yeah, I keep going back and forth with this. I think history with Tennessee, because this is the third or fourth offseason in a row, I feel like, where they've added this big name pass rusher to try and fix things. In the last few years, it hasn't really worked. And I could see the scenario where Dupree's out of Pittsburgh and out of that elite defensive line, and all of a sudden doesn't look as dominant as Bud Dupree was. So I could see that scenario, but I think Dupree is good. And I believe in Bud Dupree that I am going to give it a slight victory for the Titans to be able to address that position. And I still think it's going to be a good offense. I just don't think it will be as good as last season.
Yeah, all right. I sort of thought this was going to be a hot take. I thought you were going to go loss here. And losing Arthur Smith obviously hurts as well. But I just feel like the things they lost are a lot easier to replace than what they gained in a guy like Dupree.
I think that's fair. Yeah, they can obviously add another possession receiver to make up for guys like, losing Davis. I think the Janoris Jenkins signing also kind of made sense, taking a flyer on him. I just would have liked him next to Adoree Jackson as the number 2 guy, rather than it seems like he's kind of coming in stuck as the number 1 guy right now.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Let's move on to another team, the Jaguars, who were in kind of a similar spot as the Jets. These two teams were kind of, almost compared to each other a lot, with a lot of cap space and a top 2 pick. They make some moves. They go out and they make a lot, sort of these smaller moves. Not a ton of big name guys. The only guy they give more, double-digit millions to is Shaquille Griffin. And they obviously tag Cam Robinson. Don't lose a ton here. For the Jaguars, I have them as a win as well. It's not a massive win. Again, they had a lot of cap space. They didn't overspend, which is not in Jaguars fashion. Maybe they learned their lesson. You can't buy a championship in free agency, although they came close in 2017. I do think that this is a slight win here, makes their team a little bit better for the future.
I agree. I have it as a win, too. I thought they got better at a lot of positions. I think Griffin, I don't know about the ceiling of Griffin, but I think he makes a lot of sense there, especially for a young guy, taking a chance on him and paying some, he's, like you said, he's the only guy they really paid any money to. And I just think that they got better across the board. Guys like Jones are going to be a nice second or third receiver for them. Malcolm Brown's not a bad trade option. Getting a guy like Carlos Hyde as that kind of second running back next to Robinson, I think makes sense. I just think it was a bunch of smart, opportunistic moves for them, and not going crazy, like you said, and overpaying everybody.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have a ton else to add on there. Want to just go ahead to the next team?
Yeah, we can keep going.
All right, we'll go to the Indianapolis Colts. They have a this was very easy to get their moves on this graphic. Not a ton of moves that they made. Didn't really do much of anything. They kind of re-signed a couple of the guys that they already had, Marlon Mack and Xavier Rhodes, and obviously they traded for once earlier. I do have this as a loss, though, because I don't like when teams, I was very high on the Colts thinking, hey, all this cap space, they can get some of this receiver help. The receiving core not looking so great right now. And I think that's something they should have addressed when they're basically, all those good receivers are gone now. So to me, this is a missed opportunity. And especially with some of these receivers wanting these 1-year deals to sort of prove it and go on the next year when we have more cap space, I think that this is a missed opportunity for Indianapolis.
I agree, because I thought that they should have added a lot of, I think that they should have been in play for a lot of these wide receivers and just weren't. Like you said, I don't understand why they weren't at least calling Will Fuller. I think there's a few of these guys that they could have looked at and they didn't. So while I don't want teams to go nuts in free agency, I thought that they had moves to make that could have improved this team and made it from a, competitive division-winning team to a potential Super Bowl team, and they didn't really make them. And maybe they bring T.Y. Hilton back and add another receiver, but I thought they really could have, improved this team in their couple of holes.
Yeah, it almost makes me wonder a little bit if this is more of a, let's pump the brakes, let's not get too excited this season, let's, see what we have in Wentz before we sort of go all in a little bit and maybe to save the cap room. But also, the coaches, they just don't like to spend, this is what they do. They don't spend in free agency, and I thought this year would be an exception given the roster they have, but they said, no, we're still going to do what we do.
Yeah, so I guess the scenario could be like if Wentz bounces back a little this season and puts together a good year, and this team goes like 13-4 next year, then I could see them really kind of going all in for it, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
They're the Colts. This is the thing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I could see it happening, but like you said, who knows with this team sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really feel like my take was like, oh, the Colts. I'm like, of course they didn't spend. What was I thinking?
Yeah. What can you do?
All right. Finally, last AFC team, and I do mean last, the Houston Texans here. They have a big list. I don't know if anyone signed more teams than the or more players than the Houston Texans, although not a lot of big names, to say the least. It took a lot of flyers on guys, it seems, getting a lot of sort of these smaller moves. I think maybe the biggest would be to Tyrod Taylor, which kind of looms a little bit large right now, given all the Deshaun Watson stuff. We don't have to get too into that, but they're a loss just because of all the stuff that comes off with Deshaun Watson, in my opinion. I think that just makes them a loss. I'm not sure if we should count that or not, but if we wouldn't, I'd probably give it a win, but with that, I'm giving it a loss.
I'd still probably lean loss. It seemed kind of like spending money just to spend it, or just, I don't even know if it's really spending money because they're not paying a ton of money to anybody.
Right.
But it's just kind of like, hey, we'll take you on. I mean, it just didn't make sense. This team is Phillip Lindsay and Mark Ingram. Like, how many running backs does this team need? Ryan Finley and Tyrod Taylor, which kind of leads me to believe that this team isn't really thinking Watson's going to be on the team. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of have it as a loss just because I don't really know what the plan is with all these signings. It just kind of said, let's go quantity over quality, it seems like to me.
Yeah, well, I can pull it back. To me, I don't hate it, though, because I feel like this feels like, okay, we're rebuilding this year, so let's just get guys who, could do well. Christian Kirksey sort of have, Phillip Lindsay, guys have potential. Marcus Cannon's another one where they traded for him. Shaq Lawson. Get these guys and just sort of have them play, try them out, and if they're good, then you keep them, and if they suck, well, then who cares, because you're not going to be good this year anyways.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with them. My thing is, I just don't think they got better from this. That's why I had it as a loss.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're certainly not going to be like competitive. That's fair. I get what they're doing a little bit, but yeah, and again, with Watson, it makes it like a biggest loss of the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, that's always going to loom over everything they do.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so that's it for the AFC. Let's move on to the NFC. I have to go to the bathroom, but I'm going to let you go ahead and give your thoughts on the Seattle Seahawks.
Seattle Seahawks. So the Seattle Seahawks brought back Chris Carson, signed Gerald Everett to a cheap deal, which I thought was a good one, and then brought in Gabe Jackson, which is a nice move for Russell Wilson, and bringing in a decent offensive lineman. I had it as a slight win. I thought they could have made a couple more moves, but overall, I thought they just made some opportunistic things for themselves, got a little bit better with guys like Jackson and getting guys like Carson back, and I just thought it was a good move overall to bring in those guys, and Everett I think is a good flyer. And I guess the one move you could have said is, they didn't bring back Shaquille Griffin, but I'm not sure if they wanted to pay Shaquille Griffin that kind of money, and this team always just seems to get by with cornerbacks. While the secondary wasn't very good, I think it's going to bounce back with those safeties this next season, regardless of who's at corner. So I have it as a win for the Seahawks.
Yes, I also like the comment. It's the Kyle podcast now. That's right, Kyle podcast. I had them as a loss. I feel like I do agree the Chris Carson thing is that's huge, keeping him there. But I feel like they lost a decent amount. I don't think they gained too much here. So again, it's a slight loss because it doesn't feel like anything was huge. But I still would have liked to see them sort of address the pass rush situation. Chris Dunlap is now gone. This seems like I gave him a loss. Not a huge loss, but a little bit of a loss.
Yeah, and that will be the interesting thing because we saw what this defense looked like without a guy like Carlos Dunlap. So maybe they're able to add somebody and improve that, but I still think that they got slightly better at positions that they weren't very good at, and I'm willing to give that a win because of it.
Yeah, fair enough. And they still have Russell Wilson, so that's a pretty big one just there.
Yeah, they didn't trade him, so that's the biggest one.
Right. Let's go to Arizona. The Arizona Cardinals, I have them as a win here, largely because getting Rodney Hudson for basically free. I don't know what it is about the Cardinals getting star players for very little amount. Get him for a third. Obviously, they had the Hopkins thing last year. Also, Matt Prater, which I think is key. They lost some games due to the kicking position. Getting that squared away is huge. Getting J.J. Watt. They do lose a little with the Kenyon Drake, Patrick Peterson, Hassan Reddick, but I think they gained more than they lost here. And I also like the re-signing of Robert Alford so they can get him for less money. I think that made sense. And Kelvin Beachum, he's played well for them. Hasn't played well the rest of his career, but he's played well for them. So I have them as a win.
I had them as a bigger winner too. I thought they did a really good job this offseason. I think letting Peterson go made sense. I think letting some of their other guys go made sense. The Reddick thing. I'm surprised Reddick went for the money that he did after his season, but I think teams are just getting smarter. But, they brought in J.J. Watt, so it wasn't necessarily a dire need for them to bring him back. And I think A.J. Green's a nice flyer. As a number 3 receiver who kind of battled with a lot of injuries, I think A.J. Green's a really nice flyer for them. So I think that's a win.
Yeah, the Cardinals and having a veteran wide receiver who's an all-timer, name a more iconic duo.
Yeah, that's true. Fitzgerald's gone this year, right?
He still hasn't signed a contract, but probably.
Yeah. So I just think I think AJ Green still has something in the tank.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I guess we'll see. I don't know. I wouldn't say for certain, but again, just getting the star players, J.J. Watt and Rodney Hudson. I think Rodney Hudson will help them a lot when their interior offensive line was an issue last year.
Yeah, and they can still probably add a couple more guys in the interior of the offensive line, but Hudson's a big piece.
Yeah, I agree. We'll go to the Rams now, the Los Angeles Rams. They didn't do a ton here. They lose Michael Brockers, lose Malcolm Brown, Gerald Everett, Troy Hill, John Johnson. So they lose a good chunk. They did re-sign Leonard Floyd. They also traded for Matt Stafford, and I wasn't entirely sure if we should count that just given the fact that it was earlier, but I'm still going to include it. So for me, it's a win just because I think upgrading the quarterback position means so much that even though they lost a ton elsewhere, I think getting an upgrade at quarterback, that's going to make it a win for me.
I had it as a win too because of that. I thought that the defense probably downgraded a little bit, and there wasn't really a lot of moves for the Rams to make given their cap space situation. But I thought they did fine, and obviously, like you said, Stafford's the big piece. And if this team makes a Super Bowl, it's because they got better at quarterback. So I have it as a win.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels like they feel closer to a Super Bowl now than they did last year. So to me, that's simple. It's a win. All right, we don't have to spend forever on them because, again, they didn't do a ton. We've already talked about them.
Have him come up on the strong side linebacker. Kick him out with the tight end. Bring a 330-pound guard up on this 245-pound linebacker. There's a lot of ways you can attack this guy, push him out, and attack this guy with bigger players. Teams are going to do it a lot. Now maybe the Rams won't do it because the Rams are an outside zone team like the Niners. The Niners should be better equipped to stop Tiger and those guys.
He's a good player, man.
When they face a team like the Seahawks, whose offensive line coach is Mike Solari, same guy who was the Niners offensive line coach when they ran over the Lions wide 9 in 2011. He'll know exactly how to attack this scheme. So that's what the Niners can expect when they face Seattle. This is how the 49ers defended the inside zone last season. They're not even really good at defending on the inside last season, but they had 4 guys